When a wife called 911 while holding her dying husband in her arms, investigators' hearts broke for her, though it wouldn't be long until the truth came out. That this woman had planned her husband's murder, all because of a military marriage love triangle. But was she the mastermind or the victim, as she claimed? You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke Makenna, and for this being so close to New Year's, I wanted to bring you a case that just completely blows my mind. The case was so much manipulation that it was hard to believe when the truth came out. So let's go ahead and get into the story. So it was 2018 in Michigan, and Tyrone and Kamaya Hassel were in Benton Harbor, St. Joseph Township visiting Tyrone's father for New Year's Eve. So Tyrone and Kamaya were both in the military, with 23-year-old Tyrone being a U.S. Army sergeant and 22-year-old Kamaya as an Army specialist. They had married in 2017 after meeting at work, and they had a 2-year-old son at the time who was named Tyrone IV. They were often traveling for the military, and they were currently based in Georgia, but they were on leave during this time for the holidays. The evening of December 31st, 2018, Tyrone had gone out to a family party where they were making a whole bunch of food and just hanging out, and Kamaya had actually stayed home at Tyrone's father's house to watch their son, so he wasn't up all night. So around 11 p.m., Tyrone actually planned on coming home, and he texted Kamaya saying that he was bringing her a plate of food. Now, unfortunately, around this time, he would pass away. It was just before midnight, the turn of the new year, when a shot rang out near Tyrone's father's home. When Kamaya ran outside, Tyrone was lying on the driveway, and a 911 call recorded Kamaya saying,
911 was there to see emergency. I need help. My husband was shot.
Now, Tyrone had been shot, but Kamaya said she hadn't seen the killer, and Tyrone was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now, Officer Lanier would report that when he arrived, he saw a dark-colored Dodge pickup truck in the driveway with a male lying against it, with a female holding on to him, attempting to comfort him. Other officers said that they went inside the residence. They actually saw a small child looking out the door's window to the driveway. The little boy was found to be the victim's son, who was then given to his grandfather away from the crime scene. His grandfather actually walked upon the crime scene, and officers were trying to make sure that everybody was back and not coming too close, and that's when he said, "But that's my son." And so he was handed this grandchild. And there was also a black male coming to the scene, and he was identified as a cousin and wanted to know what was going on. Now, he appeared distraught and anxious. He wanted to go to the hospital with Tyrone, though he didn't have an ID on him at the time, so they couldn't confirm if he was actually a cousin. Now, at the scene, the St. Joseph police were locating items next to the truck next to the victim. This was $120 in cash, a brown wallet with a red stripe, as well as a hat and keys, and they were found to be about 3 9mm shell casings and a bullet. However, the fingerprints appeared to be wiped off, and they were unusable. Canines had started at the victim's vehicle and led the police behind 2 sheds, and this is where a shoe print was found. Officer Peppers was then interviewing the female consoling Tyrone at the scene, whom they would then find was his wife. She was inconsolable. She did not want to leave her husband's side even as he got into the ambulance, but once they calmed her down, she had told them that he had actually made it inside with her plate of food and then decided he was going to go back to the party. So he had walked out of the house, and shortly after that, she heard gunshots.
Do you have any idea what happened here?
No, he just brought us something to eat.
Okay.
So we sit on the couch eating, and then I just heard gunshots.
She was asked if it was more than 10, and she said no, but it was more than one. But Kamaya said that to her knowledge, her husband didn't have any problems with anyone, especially because they didn't even live there at this time. She also gave investigators her phone to look through, which they found nothing on. The body cam footage from when first responders arrived at 2087 Colfax Ave was obtained by ABC 57. Family at the scene were asking investigators if they thought that somebody was trying to break into their house or if this was a robbery, but nothing had been stolen. There was no forced entry into this home. Tyrone was known to friends and family as such a hard-working man. He was high-achieving. He had a strong sense of right and wrong. He had studied mechanical engineering before enlisting in the military in 2015, and he quickly climbed the ranks to sergeant. At the time of his death, he was known to be a devoted husband and father who had a jovial personality. He loved having a good time. He was known especially to treat his wife like a queen, and his number one priority was his son. He was always either being active or he was taking care of his dogs and the family. He was said to make everyone around him want to be a better person. A family member would then tell police that Tyrone had actually gone to Walmart prior to this and purchased ammo to shoot off at midnight for New Year's Eve, and surveillance footage at this Walmart showed him walking in, buying this 9mm ammo, and then 2 other black males came in around the same time to buy the same exact thing. Tyrone was seen talking to him, then he waited for them to finish, and they all walked out together. However, Tyrone's gun, which had the same ammo that was found at the scene, or similar, his gun was found at the house party because he left it there waiting for it to be shot at midnight. Now, the next day, the victim's father, who was also named Tyrone, was asked to answer some questions at the police department. Investigators took a screenshot from the body cam footage of this alleged cousin who showed up at the scene and showed the father this to make sure this was actually a cousin, and he confirmed that it in fact was a cousin named Corvell Hardnett. So the victim's father then said that he knew or thought he knew who had done this, and he showed screenshots of comments on a Facebook post by a male named Alan Collins. Alan had written, "That will teach him to take my, again, LMFAO." The victim's father also said that his stepson Benny, so Tyrone's stepbrother, was often in trouble due to theft, and that he could have been the intended target that night. The victim's father said that he would cooperate with police, but that he could also have the killer killed if he wanted to, if they weren't doing their job. So his stepson Benny was then brought in for questioning and claimed that no one would want to kill him. He provided a theory that Tyrone's murder was a robbery. That was already ruled out. But then investigators learned of a possible enemy of Benny's that could have mistakenly killed Tyrone, thinking it was Benny. This was a man named Darius Carter who had once come to that residence to confront Benny about stealing his phone and his car. So then they brought in Darius and asked him about this, and Darius admitted to going to Benny's home that day and asking for everything back, and Benny's parents did so, and so he was satisfied. He said he wasn't even there the night of the murder, and he had an alibi that was corroborated and confirmed. A phone call then came in from a neighbor of the crime scene who said that there had been a suspicious vehicle parked across the street. It was a dark or black sedan that he hadn't seen before, and it had sped off about 10 minutes later, but 10 minutes after that it returned to the same spot. He said he then saw a man around 5'9" that got out and started walking, and soon after that gunshots rang out. When this neighbor, got up in his home to see where the gunshots were, this vehicle was gone. Now, this family opened a GoFundMe for reward money, and Kamaya was taking to Facebook to grieve. She posted that she wished she was just dreaming, and she was trying not to blame herself, and that she owed Tyrone another baby, that they wanted a little girl. She continued to stay with Tyrone's family so that they could grieve together, pray together, ate together, and just kept each other together, basically. But on January 2nd, the autopsy was done, and a bullet was collected from Tyrone's right arm. Tyrone had been shot twice in the head, once in the neck, and once in the shoulder. That same day, investigators identified and got in contact with the 2 men who were seen with him in Walmart. This happened to be a father and a son-in-law who claimed they ran into Tyrone, and that the son-in-law actually knew Tyrone from school, so they started talking, and the father of this duo stated that the rumor on the street was that Tyrone was the wrong target. It was really for Benny. And that information that they already knew of hadn't been released to the public at this time, but this was something that was going around in the community. The victim's father then went back to police to tell them that he had been told by one of Tyrone's friends that there had been an incident a day prior to his murder when they were at the skating rink. So there was allegedly a man known as Drama who was glaring at Tyrone, but Tyrone blew this off. He just wanted to have fun. And so this friend of Tyrone was brought in and questioned, and he said that Drama was was being named as the shooter, as the killer around town. And the whole town seemed to have their own theories and suspects about who had done this to Tyrone, because Tyrone had grown up there. So although he hadn't been there recently to get into trouble or to have any enemies, he could have had enemies from the past. But many were questioned about a possible love affair that Tyrone was having, cheating on his wife. However, no one knew for certain that that was happening. 11 days since the murder, on January 11th, the St. Joseph police received another tip. This was from an anonymous woman who claimed that there might have been a possible love triangle involved in this murder. She claimed that they should be looking into Kamaya, not Tyrone, as the cheating partner. She had heard about an awfully close relationship between Kamaya, Tyrone's wife, and another man, and she believed this man was responsible for the murder, but didn't know his name. 12 days since, so a day after that, and Special Agent Joseph Thompson, in charge of the Fort Stewart military base in Georgia, was calling the St. Joseph police. Now, this SA told investigators that 2 separate individuals had come to him on base and told him that there was a soldier talking about Tyrone's death. He said that he had been informed that Tyrone, Kamaya, and this man were stationed at that same military base, and it turned out that all these witnesses on base wanted to remain anonymous due to fear of that man. You see, the Hassel couple, so Tyrone and Kamaya, as well as this man, were said to be assigned to the same base all the way in Korea. And then they were assigned to the same base in Georgia, to the 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart. And after some investigating, this man was identified as 24-year-old Jeremy Cuellar. It turned out that this man had come from Georgia, where the military base was, to where Tyrone's hometown was 3 or 4 days prior to Tyrone's murder. This information was gathered due to his cell phone that placed him in the area. So Kamaya was asked to come down to the police department with very little information on why she was there. She was asked for her phone once again to search, and she gave this to them. This time, they were looking for Jeremy's number, and they found that there were phone calls between them 3 times in the month of January after Tyrone's murder. So she was asked if she knew a soldier named Jeremy, and she said that she did. They were stationed together, they were friends, they were both truck drivers, so they worked very closely. Then she stated that she had just talked to him earlier that day when asked when the last time she'd contacted him was. She denied, though, that Jeremy had come to see her for New Year's Eve or to see Tyrone during the leave time. When investigators started asking her, "Do you know where this is going, Kamaya, why you're being questioned?" and Kamaya was saying that she didn't, they were telling her that Jeremy was being questioned as well. And Kamaya instantly wanted to know what he was saying. So when investigators asked her for her side of the story, she said she had no involvement in her husband's death. Officers then began to tell her that Jeremy was talking about what happened to Tyrone on base with other soldiers and using information that only the killer would know. And investigators were saying Tyrone had been killed at such a specific time when he was leaving that residence after coming back just for a few moments that someone close to Tyrone had to have known and been involved and given the killer that information. Kamaya was then told that they were given information that she was having an affair on her husband and told Jeremy to kill her husband. That this murder could have been planned all the way back in Korea. All Kamaya had to say, though, was that Jeremy did not come to Michigan to see her, and that they couldn't have planned a murder in Korea because there were no firearms allowed there. This is when Kamaya started denying cheating on her husband at all, saying that she was pregnant with her husband's baby. She was saying Jeremy was a firecracker and the littlest thing could set him off, but also at the same time, she didn't have a reason that he would be upset with them either. Kamaya then agreed to do a polygraph test because they weren't getting anywhere with questioning. And she was saying that she didn't think that she would do well due to her being nervous, but she would still take this test. So afterwards, Kamaya was then confronted by investigators for not being truthful about Tyrone's murder. And this is when Kamaya's story switched. She said she lied about Jeremy, that it all started in Korea due to her being unhappy with her husband, him being controlling and not helping out with the baby. And so Kamaya would eventually admit to talking to her secret lover Jeremy over Snapchat, which she at first denied. That way their conversations would disappear.
You're a victim in this. I'm going to be honest with you, but you need to get out in front of us right now. For your little one, you got to get out in front of us. You got to explain what was going on.
So, when we were in Korea, I can't really pinpoint exactly when it was. Me and Ty had this big argument, and then, I came back into the building, I was talking to Jeremy. I'm like, man, I don't want to do it no more. Like, I'm tired of this shit, I don't want to deal with it no more. And he was like, so why y'all still together? And I was like, we have a child, and even if I talked to him about divorce, he probably wouldn't even, do it with me. And he was like, I can handle that. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He was like, I can handle it. Like, shit, when I get back, I get a gun, blah, blah, blah. But I never took him serious about it.
Kamaya then admitted that when Jeremy came to Michigan during leave, they planned several times to kill her husband and even cased a possible other crime scene, but that she was never serious about it.
It was just planned in Korea. It wasn't to be done in Korea. It was just planned in Korea when we got back to the States.
As far as now, are you sad that you planned this out with him?
Yeah, when I kept saying that, with what I know now, if I could, I would go back and not do it. I wouldn't even talk to Jeremy at all, knowing that everything would have gone like this.
Kamaya said that she thought that Jeremy would be mad if she called it off, so she didn't.
Myself, I feel just as guilty as him.
Well, I agree.
Because I knew all about it, and like I said, I probably could have stopped it, but the reason that I didn't, because I felt like he would, be mad at me or...
And not love you anymore?
Yeah. Because I just felt like I wasn't getting that love at home like I wanted to.
So she said that she told Jeremy when Tyrone was coming home, when he was coming out, and that it needed to be done that night because she didn't want to return home to Georgia with her husband. So she informed Jeremy over text that Tyrone was coming home with a plate of food for her and that he could do it then. So Kamaya Hassel, the victim's wife, and Jeremy Cuellar, her lover, were arrested for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Jeremy immediately requested a lawyer and refused to talk, being held on $2.5 million bail. Kamaya then took a jailhouse call with her mother, where she told her mother she knew what was going on this whole time about the murder and that she got mixed up in something. She said that she planned her husband's murder in Korea so that she could be with her boyfriend. Kamaya's mother was saying, is someone telling you to make up this story? Are you being forced into this? And she said she was being forced by Jeremy and actually wanted to break up with him. But this is when Kamaya's search history was looked into, and this showed inquiries into how to delete Snapchat messages and also searching active duty soldier killed on New Year's Eve. Jeremy's Snapchat account was actually still active on his phone when they were looking into it, and on his Snapchat, they could not find anyone under the name of Kamaya. However, there was someone that he had been in constant contact with, which was later confirmed as Kamaya. A press release then announced the arrest and the murder of Tyrone Hassel III. At this point, January 22nd, 22 days since the murder, Jeremy's wife, that's right, wife, Asmin, was contacted, and she stated that she didn't believe he could do something like this and that she was with him on New Year's Eve around 2 p.m. because they were signing divorce papers. However, she did say that after that they parted ways and she had no idea where he had gone. While in jail, Jeremy was said to be making calls to friends saying that he was thinking about taking his own life. And by February 3rd, he was transferred to a Michigan jail from where he had gone back to Georgia. At this point, evidence was being sent over to the St. Joseph Township Police from the Georgia police who had searched Jeremy's car and residence after he had returned, and they had found a pair of tan boots. Now, these were taken in to be tested to see if they matched the footprint at the crime scene. They had also found that his car was black, just like witnesses had seen in the area that night. 3 months later, in May of 2019, DNA swabs were taken from both suspects, and it was also found at this time that Tyrone had a $400,000 life insurance policy with the military, and that his beneficiary would be his wife. In August 2019, Jeremy would then take a plea deal. He wanted to avoid the first-degree murder charge and plead guilty to second degree, and he was sentenced to a minimum of 65 years. The judge was saying that he chose money over another human being, but Jeremy actually said he wanted to apologize to the victim's family.
I want to apologize to the family again, sincerely. I was a fool for just taking her words and not really looking to see who he was. It was stupid. And that's not me at all. You know, I was raised right. I just had issues within my own demons. I know we all do. But when she was telling me, I told her I opened up to her, and she played on me. I shouldn't have, opened up to her. I was a fool for trusting her.
So he was saying that this was more about Kamaya and her manipulation and how she was painting her husband, and that is why he killed him. But days later, Tyrone's father, so the victim's father, visited Jeremy in jail. This was part of the plea deal that Jeremy had wanted to speak to Tyrone's father one-on-one. And so Jeremy proceeded to confess to him about the murder, to apologize. Tyrone's father said that he wanted to hear his side of the story. And that is when Jeremy started saying that Kamaya was talking to him about wanting her husband to die, and that he saw the opportunity to have a family that he always wanted, because he also loved Kamaya and Tyrone's son, who he called Chunk.
I'm very sorry. I know that is not even enough. I was going through things with my wife. We was already planning a divorce, right? Met Kamaya because we was in the same platoon. Me and her liked each other. We started messing around. She was telling me she wasn't happy. When we got to Korea, it was probably like the fourth month that we was there, and we was updating our life insurance. And she brought it up. She goes, "So is your wife on the life insurance?" And I was like, "No, it's my mom." And she was like, "Okay." She was like, "Yeah, I'm on ties." I was like, "Okay," you know what I'm saying? And she was just like, "Yeah, you know what I'll do with 400,000?" I was like, "There's a whole bunch of shit you can do with 400,000." And she was like, "Yeah, I'll pay off the house," you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. I was like, "Damn, you talking like you would want him to die, like you want an accident to happen." And she sat there and she looked at me and she was like, "What's up?" At that moment, man, I should have been like, "Bitch, you crazy," but man, sir, like, I really opened up to her. It honestly took me like 6 times, sir. At least 6 times. I'm being completely honest with you. The first time I choked, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I was wrong as fuck, and I'm truly sorry. I mean that. I seriously mean that.
Well, that's what I came here for anyway.
Okay.
I see something. I looked at you and I could see it's something that you want to get off. So me, I ain't got nothing else. I ain't even got my son. You know what I mean? So if you got something that you want to say, that's what I came here to listen to.
I was twisted. My mind was twisted. I thought I had to do that in order for me to have a family with her because I wanted kids.
He said that once it was done, Kamaya was happy with him. And Jeremy was telling Tyrone's father that he thought about taking the blame so that Kamaya could be at home with their son. Tyrone's father then asked Jeremy why he had pled guilty, and he said the reason is because Chunk is deprived of a father and a mother now, and he felt horrible about that. So after this jailhouse interview, this call, Tyrone's father said that at least Jeremy showed some remorse since Kamaya still wasn't. But Jeremy had explained that their whole relationship affair had started when Kamaya had given him rides to work in Korea. And that is when he had a dream about her. And he told her this, and she asked for his Snapchat and started sending him photos. But by the time of her trial, Kamaya claimed that she had been coerced into confessing. Her defense was claiming that she had been broken down and manipulated during questioning, and she didn't actually have any involvement in the murder, that Jeremy had done this all alone. So at the trial, the prosecution presented Jeremy Cuellar as the killer after getting involved with Kamaya and plotting to kill her husband to collect his life insurance policy. But that Kamaya was the mastermind who let him know when to attack. Now, a fellow soldier did testify that Jeremy had told him that Buddy, Tyrone, had to go, and that he wanted to do it around the time that they were on leave. And then an inmate informant testified who had been in jail with Jeremy after he had been arrested. He said that Jeremy had admitted to the killing, saying that he was madly in love with this woman, wanted to be the father of her son, Chunk, and that he didn't feel guilty because he wanted this family. Jeremy allegedly explained to him that he came around the house shooting and that he ran after shooting Tyrone, but Tyrone was still breathing at that point. The informant also said that Jeremy was talking to another inmate who was in jail with them named Momo, and he was trying to get Momo to help him kill the witnesses for the investigation. Now, of course, this was all brought forward by the defense, hoping to make it seem as though Kamaya had very, very little involvement in this murder and was possibly a victim herself, a victim of her horrible abusive husband, as she claimed, and then a victim of this very controlling, obsessed boyfriend who had killed that husband. But this did not work because an hour after deliberation, Kamaya was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tyrone's father said that Kamaya showed no sympathy at all, that she was the devil. Tyrone's mother said, "How could you take the life of a man that gave you his last name, a name you didn't deserve to have? I hope every time you close your eyes, my son taps you on the shoulder and smiles." Kamaya was given the chance to speak. She said nothing. Their son, Tyrone IV, is now being taken care of by Kamaya's family, and at the time of the trials, Tyrone's father said that he hasn't gotten to see his grandson since. Now, in 2020, Jeremy tried to withdraw his guilty plea, but this was denied, and Tyrone's father said that this was like a slap in the face, that Jeremy had originally seemed very remorseful, that he was willing to plead guilty, but then going back on that now felt horrible. And Kamaya has been petitioning for a new trial. She claimed that her attorney was ineffective, that the police interrogations were coercive. She then claimed she was a victim of the battered women's syndrome by her husband, and that is what caused her to even want her husband dead in the first place. But the Admission Court of Appeals upheld her murder conviction in 2022. Do you think Kamaya was the mastermind behind this? Was she a victim with Tyrone or with Jeremy? Was this something that she didn't want done or maybe mentioned in passing, not thinking it would actually happen? Was this something that she forced Jeremy into doing? Would Jeremy have killed Tyrone or killed anyone if it wasn't for Kamaya? I just think that the jailhouse interview between Jeremy and Tyrone's father seems very genuine, that Jeremy does have remorse. Now, he could just be a very manipulative sociopath. That is 100% an option. But it did seem as though he was sorry for what he had done and had realized the amount of manipulation that Kamaya had him under during the time he was doing that. And the fact that it did take him 6 times, or so he says, to murder Tyrone, I think says a lot. And I think the fact that Tyrone's father has even said that he can see the remorse in Jeremy and that he was willing to take that phone call with him says so much. Beyond the murder, the complete defamation of Tyrone's character is one of the most heartbreaking parts, because to me, while Kamaya is saying that he's controlling and abusive and not good to their son, doesn't take care of their son, he was coming home from a party to give his wife and son food just to go back to that party. Those of us who don't know the situation and didn't know Tyrone before will never probably know exactly who he was, if he really was this genuinely caring father and husband. And not only was he murdered by his wife, but then she destroyed his character. It really just sickens me. This whole case does, that she would do that to him. Do you think that this was for the $400,000 life insurance policy? Did Kamaya really want that money? If they hadn't had been caught, do you think that they would have gotten together? And we can't forget about the life that was completely changed by all of this. Tyrone IV, that little 2-year-old boy who lost his father and his mother during that same time, and possibly witnessed his father on the ground after looking outside of the window of the door at the crime scene. So my heart goes out to him. So let me know all of your opinions on this, and also if you've ever heard of Snapchat being used in murder for hire plots or in murders, because it is something that, although the disappearing messages is a cool feature, that's also dangerous with something like this where you can never recover those messages. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces.